Hi, I'm David.
And I'm Gail.
And we're here in Palermo, and we're going to take you on a little bit of a train journey that will take us on two types of trains, between Palermo and Catania, also on the island of Sicily. So our first train that we're going to be catching is an intercity train, so it's a little bit more of a going between major cities. And just taking a quick look at the trains, we can't get on quite yet, but just looking from the outside, it looks like they're an older version of the intercity train, so it's going to be a little bit interesting from that standpoint.
Sure, so it's going to take us to Messina, which is in the northeastern corner of Sicily.
And then from Messina to Catania, we're going to be catching a Regionale Veloce train, and we'll find out what that's like. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what is the difference between the two types of trains, and sort of give you a guide as to what to expect when you're on these kinds of trains. Also, what an older intercity train might look like.
I'm getting excited myself.
Okay, we'll see you on board.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So here we are, comfortably seated on board the intercity train to Messina.
This will be our home for the next 3 hours or so.
For sure. And we'll show you some of the features elsewhere on the train. But for right now, we're going to show you the features of our particular seats. And right off the bat, I'll tell you that our seats, one of the key features of the intercity trains is that you can reserve the seats. And I would say it's particularly important to do that because there was a little bit of chaos here when we were getting on board, because a certain number of people didn't have a reserved seat, and then they try to plunk themselves down in the seat and then have to move because they find out it actually is reserved for somebody else. And then potentially, if you're traveling with somebody, you could end up being separate, because this is a pretty full train right now. So just to bear in mind that when you get the option to reserve seats, make sure you do that. Anyways, that's that. Mm-hmm. And Gail, what about the features of this particular
Well, sure. First of all, this is an air-conditioned train. I'm feeling a little bit warm in here, so I don't know if that's going to resolve itself or if it's me, but it is fairly comfortable. Certainly we have generous rooms for our legs.
Yeah, there we go.
And our baggage is pretty happy as well. It's in a rack above, and we have 3 pieces now, and they're well secured, and it was no problem. In front of me is a tablet or a table that folds out, good and solid, so that will be useful during our trip. Now, this is just a digression, but you'll see that this particular tablet is decorated or advertising the film festival in Taormina. That's a place where we're going to be going later on in our trip around Sicily, unfortunately not for the film festival. So here we have Sergio Leone, the director of the Spaghetti Westerns, for example, from the 1972 festival. And in front of David is Sydney Pollack. All of those steamy movies, huh? There he is, Sydney.
And a couple of features of all intercity trains, pretty much, is they all have sockets where you can plug in your European adapters, for charging your phone and what have you. These are, in this case, it's very conveniently right between the seats in front of you. So pretty much a feature of all trains that we've been on is that they have some form of a blind if you happen to be on the sunny side of the train. Get pretty bright. Pull this down like that. So there is a snack bar in the lounge car, I guess you call it. However, the snack bar consists of machines, vending machines, pretty much. So you've got your usual choice of kinds of snacks that you might have, lots of waters and chips and what have you. Over here, the same kind of idea. And there's also a coffee machine as well over here. Now in this case, you can use either 5 or 10 euro notes or coins, I guess. And there's also an option to use a credit card, which is what I've been using because I don't happen to have any 5 or 10 euro notes. It does work actually. The only downside is if you go into a tunnel, your transaction will likely not happen.
Hello again. We're now on our second train, the Regionale Veloce, from Messina to Catania. It's about a 1 hour and 20-minute ride.
Yeah, and it was a little bit of excitement there. You haven't seen any pictures of the exterior of this train because the last train we were on coming to Messina was 13 minutes late, which is 3 minutes longer than the layover we had in Messina. So technically we shouldn't be on this train, but we think they delayed this train by a tiny bit so that we could catch it. And I think with a little bit of huffing and puffing with us and several other people, parties who were on the other train, we managed to get on this and are on our way to Catania. So we're looking forward to getting there.
Sure. Now we are familiar with this train because this is the type of train we've used in earlier episodes regionally when we were doing our walk.
Yeah. So the deal is, of course, these are for more short distance trips. I'm supposing the seats they're more of a commuter train, really. So the seats are slightly closer together, a little less leg room. The seats are just vinyl. I mean, they're all very nice and spanking brand new trains for sure. These are quite nice cars. But
sure. Still air conditioned.
Still air conditioned, yeah. Still got lots of room for storage of baggage upstairs. There's down between us here, between our seats, there's one electrical outlet. And the other thing, big difference is that compared with the intercity trains, you cannot reserve your seats here. So it's just first come, first serve.
So it was a bit of a case of musical chairs when we came in here, just trying to get a place together.
For sure. Anyways, I think that's it. I think we should just catch our breath and sit back and enjoy the scenery.
Right, we're right along the sea, so it's almost like we're on a causeway or something. Really, that's how it feels.
Yeah.
But we're right on the coast.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see you in Catania.
Okay, bye-bye.
Welcome to Catania, Sicily's second largest city, and a place where we have stayed for the last couple of days as a springboard to Mount Etna.
And right behind us here is the neighborhood that our bed and breakfast is in, and I would say it's sort of a rough and tumble neighborhood. I mean, completely safe, but it's certainly got its rough hewn edges to it. However, not too far away from here, it certainly is much more beautiful, I would say, much more like your sort of city center.
Maybe even in a sense more extraordinary because a quarter of it is a district of it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site because of its Baroque formal buildings, its public buildings.
But Catania for us, for this particular trip, we're not here very long, just 2.5 days about. But our primary purpose in coming here is actually because it's a springboard to off in that direction is Mount Etna, which is a really active volcano. And what we're going to do is we're going to do one tour of Mount Etna. And then we're going to, on the next day, we're going to do a wine and food tour of Mount Etna wineries because supposedly they have very special properties to the wine and I think to the vegetables and other things that they grow here due to the volcanic soil that they have.
Yeah, so despite the ruggedness, there is a lushness, a real fertile feel with all the beautiful vegetation. I've just picked up from the curbside some volcanic ash. There is a symbiotic relationship between the city and the mountain, or the volcano, and only a few months ago in the summertime, there was an eruption, and there's a raining of ash onto the city. So yeah, there's still collections of ash along the curbs.
Yes, particularly in our neighborhood. It's a little less so in the
UNESCO Heritage Site.
Yeah, more fancy neighborhoods. Anyways, that's enough, I think, for our introduction. I think it's time to get on to some of those tours that we've been doing.
Yes.
So we're on a morning tour of Mount Etna, and basically it takes us up to a mid-level height on Mount Etna. It climbs up the southeast side up to 2,000 meters altitude. Now this was arranged through a company called Etna Experiences. We rode with basically as a minibus full of other people from other countries, more or less. It included the minibus tour as well as lunch, and if you needed them, warm coats and boots. And it also included a brief tour of a lava tube, which we'll get to.
Yeah, so Mount Etna is the largest of 3 active volcanoes in Italy. It's 2.5 times the height of Mount Vesuvius, and it's one of the world's most active volcanoes. Now, we learned that this was a good thing because those frequent eruptions relieve pressure. And, there had been an eruption about 2 months before we were there, hence the ash that was still on the sidewalks of Catania. Now, there are 5 main craters to Mount Etna, and that's fine and good. They're the kind of the things that you think of, but it's really the flank craters that are along the side or on the ground that pose the greatest dangers. And there have been over 60 flank eruptions in total, 4 since 2000. But it's essentially, or apparently, safe to hike Mount Etna. We certainly had no problem doing so. And the thing to know is that you do need an experienced tour guide. We're in downtown Catania and visiting Catania's Roman amphitheater, which likely dates back to the 2nd century AD. It was very unassuming from the street level, and it actually caused me to be reluctant to visit. And I'm glad, though, that we did. At the street level, only 1/10 of the amphitheater is visible, and therefore my deception. But, if you take the stairs down about 3 stories, it gets you to the floor of the amphitheater. And there, as you make your way north, you enter it. And you also enter the remains of a Roman road.
In a restaurant that its name translates to meat and fish, and certainly this is an area that's rich in fish, and we've decided to go all fish for this meal. So David, describe what we're going to have for the meal.
So we're having their degustation menu, sort of a tasting menu, I guess you'd say. So this is our, we're not too sure if it's all of or part of our antipasto course, and it's a variety of different seafood. And it's all marinated in Sicilian lemon, by the way, and oil. So in the meantime, we've gotten a third plate of antipasti, and it's again more seafood. You can see this is easily identifiable as mussels.
Believe it or not, we've just received our 4th offering of our first course. So apparently we have a tuna dish here. And then we've got a mixed kind of marinated vegetable melange. We've got
eggplant.
which is very big here in the entire island of Sicily. Olives, there's some carrots I see, some cauliflower, and there's some swordfish in there, we're told.
Right. It's called a caponata.
And then here we've got what they're calling a swordfish lasagna. We've got layers of swordfish with cheese and aubergine, again, eggplant.
So we're on to our second course, or secondi, which is just basically it's a platter of grilled seafood. They love doing grilled style seafood here. Okay, Gail, it's dessert time.
It is. Luckily, that main course was easy to take. It wasn't all that heavy, and I think there's always a unique stomach that's reserved just for dessert. So there's always room for dessert. So we have, as part of this fixed menu, a semi-freddo. I have an almond one. David has a pistachio one. So we'll just see what it's like. But usually, my understanding is it's always kind of frozen, ice creamy, like inside, with an outer shell that's kind of lighter, not as frozen. It always reminds me of a bit like a baked Alaska. But let's see what we've got here. Oh, that is good.
So this is the start of a full day tour of the east and north sides of Mount Etna. And here we're on a Food and Wineries Etna tasting tour, also run by Etna Experiences, who did our Etna tour the other day. Now, we had a minibus, and there were only two other people, which by coincidence happened to be two other Canadians. Along the way, we visited two wineries, two main wineries anyways, as well as a restaurant for lunch. This area sort of wraps around Mount Etna from almost in a semicircle around the edge of Mount Etna, and all the wines are grown along the slope and take advantage of the volcanic soil, have a certain amount of minerality. Now there's two main wines that are produced here. One is the Etna Rosa, which is similar to a Pinot Noir. In other words, it can be sort of light-bodied or can be robust. The primary grape here is a Nerolo Mascalese grape. There's also the Etna Bianco, which is sort of a crisp, almost like a Chablis, a little bit like a Riesling. And it's a perfect wine for seafood, which is quite handy when you're in Sicily. In this case, they use the Cavalcante grape for their white wines. And both of these grapes, by the way, are native to the Mount Etna area. Along the way, we did some tastings. We sort of liked the wine, but in the end, we latched onto a fairly robust Nerolo Mascalese red from Derera Winery. We ended up buying 2 bottles, which we brought back to Canada with us. I mean, it's just a nice, warm, robust wine that we could definitely warm up a cold winter's evening in Winnipeg. So just to give you a little bit of a setting as to where Gail and I are eating, we're in a lovely square. It's called Piazza Giuseppe Mazzini, and it's totally symmetrical. Like there's 4 major streets running through it at right angles to each other, and on each of the corners is finished off with these sort of rectangular colonnaded buildings. So the square itself is a square with the 4 streets running through it. Now, Gail and I, we're just eating lightly tonight. That's the whole point of this meal. We've been eating quite a lot lately, and we just feel we need something a little bit light. Oh, that looks good, Gail. What are you having?
Well, I'm just cutting some al dente pasta. I probably don't have to do that. This is pasta, fisherman's pasta alla norma. Pasta alla norma is a local favorite dish which consists of pasta and basil and aubergine or eggplant and tomatoes. And in this particular case, this is a fish restaurant called Fish and Drink Lounge Bar, very generic kind of a name. They've got some fish of the day added to the traditional dish.
For sure.
So David?
Okay, well I have actually it's a very straightforward dish. It's just spaghetti with ricotta, cheese, tomatoes that appear to be, they're grilled or pan fried, I guess. And the spaghetti sauce itself, and there's also little prawns in here. And the spaghetti sauce has chopped up pistachios in it. And of course, pistachios, if you're wondering where pistachios come from, they come from right around here. They're actually grown on the slopes of Mount Etna. So here we are in front of a chosku, which is a little stand that they have in sort of at the street side. What they do is they sell regional specialties. This is one of them. It's a seltz limon et sale, which is basically a seltzer with lime and salt added to it. And believe me, there's a lot of salt in here. So it's quite a unique thing. I guess it's sort of I guess you sort of, if you thought about it as a tequila with lime and a salted rim, but without the tequila, it's sort of, I guess, like that anyway. So technically refreshing. It's very unusual, I'd say.